Hey guys, Ashley Gravano here with Mortgage Cadence. Today I have with me Jennifer Smith, a very good friend of mine from Gateway First Bank. Hey Jennifer, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you, Ashley?
I am doing COVID and quarantine. I'm doing good. I'm
What's
doing good.
that? I've not heard.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
yeah, we're all doing COVID.
Yeah, we're all doing COVID quarantine. We're all doing these remote work thing. So I'm glad you came on today. I've got a bunch of questions for you, of course, but I want to kick off and just talk about kind of how we met and let the viewers know that we met in this exclusive, very sought out group at a conference or a retreat in September of last year. And we kind of shared a not so fun thing that we have in common, which is food allergies. So we sat together and
We're
like,
the outliers of the table. We're like,
yeah,
oh, great.
exactly. We're
You
at the
can't eat
table.
that. Me neither.
Perfect. And I'm like, all right, so am I the only one who's going to have a special order? I'm like, "Psst, I have a special order." You're like, no, I do too. So
I'm like, I also have a special order. It's
yeah,
different.
yeah. And so that totally, makes it easier when you're at a table with a bunch of new people and you're not the only one who's like, I carry an EpiPen.
Yes,
So
that
good.
should
So
be our
that's
icebreaker from now on. How many here have an EpiPen in their purse or bag?
perfect. We'll do a poll like on LinkedIn that
There
will
we go.
totally see how many people are suffer from not being able to eat things that we love. So
Exactly.
that's pretty funny. But let's jump into the questions. First question, let's talk about what made you get into the mortgage industry, and then we'll pivot to why Gateway First.
Sure. So, unlike most people, I wasn't dreaming of being a mortgage agent my whole life, but no surprise. Actually, I fell into banking and mortgage as a failed applicant for a graduate program in art history. So
Wow,
I was,
art history,
yeah,
mortgage.
very similar, very creative. And now I actually had dreams of being a curator and an art historian. And as I was awaiting news of whether or not I got into a PhD program for photographic history or history of photography, I was working at Bank of America, and no, I declined from the two places I applied. So I thought
Darn.
I probably should get like focus on this job then,
Yeah,
if I'm not
yeah.
going to be doing that. And I really did enjoy working at Bank of America. I was there a little over 22 years.
Wow.
And so I did mortgage there for a while as part of our affluent banking channel with Premier Banking and Investments way back. And then went into change management, which is more of what I do today. A lot more, it is what I do today. And along the way, did some mergers and acquisitions work for Bank of America, including overseeing part of the Countrywide acquisition. So when Bank of America bought Countrywide back in '08, I oversaw the origination systems conversion. So
Oh
got
wait, what
to
a year
sort of
that was.
marry it back in. I
Yeah,
know, right?
yeah.
So yeah, good times, but quickly did not become good times. But that's how I
Yeah.
got into mortgage.
And then you moved over to Gateway. When was that? How long have you been there?
Almost 2 years. So October of 2018. So
Okay.
I did a small stint at Santander Consumer in between, which was really exciting, working on their building out some of their change management and working with their risk group on that. And then came over to Gateway. It it was not something I was looking to leave Santander, but
Yeah.
really great, compelling story at Gateway, just a great culture. They were at that time, Gateway Mortgage Group, they were in the process of acquiring a bank in Northwest Oklahoma. They had a new CEO at the time. The owner and founder was running for governor of Oklahoma, which spoiler alert, he won. He is
Wow,
Kevin
that's
Stitt
great.
is our governor
Yeah.
of Oklahoma. And they just had, I'm trying to keep my cat away here.
No, you're
They
totally
had
fine.
just a great, just they are still so genuine in wanting to strengthen families to help people. Like, they're in the mortgage industry for the right way. They're in banking now for the right way, for the
Mhm.
right reasons, and they do it the right way. And they're just so sincere in the sense of, when you get there, we want to link arms, we want to get stuff done together. It's very collaborative, and that's something that's not that you see a lot of bigger organizations.
Right, right.
And it was just very appealing. So it's very much like a family, and just love being there. I can't believe it's been almost 2 years. It's just flown.
Yeah, it's culture's a big thing, and being feeling like you're not just a number, and and I'm not saying all large banks do that, because I do have some great friends that work for some of the big the big four, and but feeling like your opinion matters and you can help implement change is really important, I think, for employee engagement and retention for sure.
Absolutely. No, it's critical that people you understand why the changes are happening, but feel that they're being supported, and that if they have a different opinion, or they're feeling a different emotion than adoption of that change, that's being listened to and addressed, and
Yeah.
get everybody in the boat with us, as opposed to just saying whatever, too bad, swim.
Yeah, swim, right? Yeah, and that's a good segue kind of into the next question. So your official role has lots of titles. It's SVP of Enterprise Initiative Planning and Execution. We
Yes.
need to think of something quirky and short for that, but
Right. That's
change is super, super hard, especially process change, when you're talking mergers and acquisitions, getting used to a new culture if you're adopting the culture of the one that you're acquiring, or vice versa. So let's talk about your role today, and with other lenders, or with other, because we're all in the same space, we all kind of talk. So how important is it that other lenders adopt this type of role to help with things that you guys go through?
I think a lot of lenders may have aspects of this. They may not have an official role for it, but I think a lot of people are playing those roles.
Mhm.
People play that role of change agent, or having to coordinate change. And I think what's really special about having that role at Gateway is that it really enables us to be able to look at a tactical execution approach to our strategy. So in a very thoughtful and disciplined way. There's a lot to be said for being very nimble, but at the same time, you have just rigor and discipline, so that you're making those smart decisions. You've got some quantifiable way to measure that, and to say, yes, we wanted to get to this one place. We've arrived there. We can measure that we did that. I go back to like your scientific method. If you remember that in school, I only do because my daughter is young and is learning it again.
Yeah.
You have your hypothesis
Yeah.
of what do I think is going to happen, and then you measure that. And so the group that I oversee, it's really kind of change management. It's process improvements. We have some Six Sigma certified folks on that team, which are great at helping us
Yeah.
to really optimize our processes. We also, the team I lead also has the project management office. So our project managers and then our program managers oversee more complex transformational changes, larger initiatives, or ones that really require just additional assistance because of the complexity or the risk involved. What's helpful of having someone in my role is not just coordinating those efforts and providing some insight, but what I enjoy doing, an aspect of my job, is really helping guide the senior leadership team. So I sit with our executive team in meetings every week, and we talk through where do we want to go, how are we going to bring those changes to bear, what are the implications for our associates, but really how do we get to the right place.
Yeah, and kind of keeping it all on track, and
Mm-hmm.
overseeing all the little changes and nuances is important, right? So obviously with COVID, kind of everyone. I mean, I remember you and we were hanging out in February at the Next conference, and we were, talking about what conferences we'll see each other at next, and then all of a sudden
Right.
here we are, here we are 4 months later, 4.5, and we were just talking before about how things have just kind of been put on hold. So from a volume standpoint, from inventory, from forbearance, I mean, everything that's going on. Again, we can't compare it to 2008 because the industry is so much stronger. How have your initiatives changed with COVID-19? Or do you feel like they really haven't, and you've been able to grow and do better because of this immediate shift into making things work?
I think certainly we've taken a closer look at some of the initiatives that we have going on. We've gone back and sharpened some pencils to say, is this really what we want to be doing with our treasurer during this time, especially given that, they're early on in COVID for us, obviously others were impacted sooner, but for us in the States, we were like, well, all of a sudden we're going to be working from home. And we thought, a couple weeks, a month, something.
15 days. Yeah. We were told 15 days.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so, but pretty quickly we thought, this is going to have different long-term impacts once we had the forbearance programs go through and triple P. So we really knew, okay, we need to be thinking longer term, at this. So what's going to make the most sense? So from that aspect, we refined a lot of the initiatives that we had, and good news, a lot of them didn't change, the more transformative ones. And we were able to really point to the benefits that we still expect to receive from those, including, origination system conversion. But, what has been different though is trying to think through, it's a lot, not knowing what's going to happen.
Right.
I think there used to be a sense of, okay, you could sort of bank on these certain seasonal fluctuations.
Yeah, the seasonal waves, right? Like we're going to get slow in November because, there's
Exactly. Never expected March to be what it was, never expected April's volume to be what it was. And so I think some of that has added some complexity. And so it's more of, do we even think that we're going to be slow from an origination standpoint in the fall, or
right?
Or
is it just going to kind of continue? And then, we have, I don't know if you caught the last, crystal ball with Joe on our side, but, talking about the election, things will change with that. And then, kind of where COVID is going, because some are saying it's going to be worse in the fall. So, it's really hard to predict, right? I mean, you can certainly plan for it, but you're going to have to, like you said, it has to be fluid for a while, and being able to move, the initiative start dates or things like that. But, as long as you're able to service your customers and kind of worry about that all behind the scenes, that's certainly a heavy cross to bear on your side, right? When you're like, oh, I need to kind of keep things moving, but, at the same time, when do we decide to either, slow down or speed up? So it's got to be tough.
Yeah, just being ready to pivot at a moment's notice, it's really what we're having to do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and you go in these personal waves too, where you're like, okay, this isn't so bad, and then you're like, wow, this is really bad.
Especially it's back to school. I think it's just like, I think a lot of our folks are feeling that too. It's it's not just the industry. It's you've got all of our yours, mine, all of the industries. Everybody's who has a child at home is that's of school age is, I think, at the same crossroads most of us are, which is, what are the schools doing? Are we supposed to send them back part-time? Are they online? What's going on? And do I suddenly need to learn how to do 7th grade math? Because God help us all.
No.
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all different now.
No thanks. So. Right. I know, it's funny because I want to say I did the first interview. I think it was probably with Molly and Jerry from Next. And we were like, oh, this is only going to be a few weeks, because I was saying how, like, I'm not a teacher. I mean, one thing I've learned from this is that, oddly enough, I started to go to college as for early childhood education, and within weeks was like, this is not working, and then got into mortgage.
Education, mortgage,
right. Totally. Between your art history and my childhood education, like it's just not happening. So my son will come downstairs and ask for help. I'm like, I can't help you. Sorry, I'm not a teacher. Let me call your teacher.
That, honey. That's what.
Let me call your teacher. Hang on. So I mean, this time is, we're all hoping to be back to normal, and I refuse to say the new normal, because I just think eventually we'll get there. But with the industry, I mean, what's been so great, and on our networking calls that we're part of, we've all talked about how everyone's kind of banded together to make things work. And leaning on your partners in the industry, both of us have a lot of the same folks in our network that we can just call and say, hey, this is what's going on. And, so with your role in this, initiative and strategy, I mean, that, like, your brain must be constantly, you're just trying to figure out what's next, right? For sure.
Definitely. Oh yeah. It's a lot of sleepless nights.
Yeah. I bet. My sleepless nights are just like, am I going to have to do 8th grade math this year? Like, those are my sleepless nights.
That's a lot of mine.
Yeah.
7th grade science. No, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's pretty good to, that's a good, transition to the last question, which is probably my favorite question because we're all kind of in the same boat. And in most cases, I'm on the same page with my guests as far as like, what do you miss most, with COVID? I know you went on vacation, which I don't know how you did it with no Wi-Fi and kind of disconnecting, because I think that's the only thing that's keeping this household semi-sane. We're not sane, but semi-sane is that we all have, 2 or 3 of these that we could just pick up at any moment and put our earbuds in. Um, so kudos to you doing that. But what would you say you miss most, or, you can't wait to get back to?
I think, honestly, and you're right, it was great that I got to take a vacation to remote northern Minnesota. Highly recommend. Not going to say where. I don't want everybody to go there.
No, give away
When
your
kids
secret.
are
Yeah.
remote.
Yeah.
But what I have been missing a lot is just that camaraderie with my fellow employees in the office, and that's
Yeah.
something that even as someone who worked from home for a long time when I was with Bank of America,
Mhm.
I did get to go into the offices
Yeah,
and
it was a
see people.
choice.
And
Yeah.
yeah, especially during merger and acquisition work, you're very much an intense um, work efforts with
Yeah.
people for very long hours. And, you know, that's something that I miss, is just being able to have those quick conversations in the hall and see folks. That's what I miss about COVID. That and I mean, God's honest truth, going out for some Mexican food and margaritas, like
Yeah, I think
warm queso, not
that's
takeout
Molly.
queso,
Yeah,
like
no,
fresh
not
at
the
the
same.
table
Yeah.
queso. Just
Yeah, Molly Dowdy said the
very
same thing. She
sad.
said she's going for Mexican, which her and I said that as well. And I said, yeah, I've gone for takeout Mexican, but it is just,
It's not.
mm,
No, it's
no.
not. I remember watching that and I thought, gosh, it's so true. Like I
Yeah.
just miss it.
Yeah, I've
I don't
gone to a
know.
few places that do the to-go drinks, and I'm like, okay, this is
Yeah.
cool. But when you're bringing it home or you're eating it in the parking lot, no, not really. So, and it's funny because a lot of the restaurants that you would frequent, those people become like your work family. Like you're like, oh, like
Yeah.
the bartender at one of
Right.
my local restaurants, like I'm constantly texting her, like, are you guys opening yet? She's like, no, because they've decided, not to open until they could do the indoor dining, which in New Jersey we can't yet.
Oh,
So, it's just the work camaraderie the same. Like I've been working remote for years, but I was still able to say, you know what, I'm going to the office, or I'm going to go in and meet a couple people that are local. So not being able to do that has certainly put a strain on most of us that I've talked to over the last few months. So fingers crossed that it won't be as
right.
scary as they're saying. That's what I keep
I
hearing,
know.
is the winter's going to be worse. I'm like, oh goodness, please don't, please don't.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
I
I
know.
can't
So
take much more of that. I
no.
can't. I love my family. I can't.
Yeah, no
No.
doubt. So I think the next slotted in-person conference would probably be next winter, where I saw you, last year. So it will be like a
Yeah.
year later. When you say that and you're like, wow, a year later, it's just
That,
never would I thought we would be here. When I was coming back from my last conference in March, my husband's like, you're not traveling anymore. I'm like, yeah, right. Couple weeks back on a plane. No. So it's tough.
no, exactly. I mean, I'll be at the next conference, but it's going to be virtual.
Virtual.
Which I'm glad we're having those, but at the
Yeah.
same time, yeah, there's something from that in person, which I'm
Yeah,
going to
there's
miss.
so much better where you can, hug your friends, and, because we all
Yes,
become some type of family and have some in-person drinks. But like you said, it's good that
absolutely.
it's virtual. Everyone's doing the virtual. We spend a lot of time trying to figure out what will make people watch, because you have so many of these. You don't want to, burden or
Right.
bombard people with these. So, but I'm so glad we got to have you on today and
Me
talk
too.
a little bit
Thank
about
you.
this extensive role that you're doing. So change is hard, and like you said, it's
Yes,
certainly
it does.
something that it takes an entire village to get things to change, and you get to kind of run that whole village. So kudos
I
to
don't know.
you.
I'm there to serve that village. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
run stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
we've got a fabulous team.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on today. I
Thanks,
miss you so
Ashley. I appreciate
much.
it.
I know it's
Miss you.
crazy, but we'll have to have you back on once things kind of settle down, and we'll talk about how your role's changing once things settle, and looking forward to that.
Maybe I'll have a shorter title. Maybe they'll,
Yeah.
maybe,
We'll think of something cool. Yeah, like
I have a cool acronym or something.
yeah, totally. All right, Jennifer, it was great seeing you. I'll talk to you
Thanks,
again soon.
Ashley.
Bye bye.
All right.